Hello everyone, this is Jason Ramirez with the Hit List Podcast. This is going to be a different type of episode because it's out of syndication of what I normally do with the podcast. So it's not like episode 1, 2, or 3. It's more like a special episode between the episodes. I'm here today with AW. He's one of my close friends here in where I live. We play Dungeons and Dragons together and we do jiu-jitsu. How are you, AW?
I'm doing all right today. It's been a long day, but I'm glad to be on the show with you.
Yeah, so today we're about to go see Dungeons and Dragons. And we kind of got like an early ticket. Somehow I finessed it. I don't know how to this day. But we're about to go see it right now. So we're going to do our thoughts before the film. So what are you hoping for this movie, AW?
I hope that the visual aesthetics of it and the story of it appeal to a large audience. In general, the genre of fantasy and high fantasy has grown drastically over the past 5-10 years, especially with the rise of a show like Game of Thrones. There's going to be two groups of people that end up watching this movie. There's going to be the people who know nothing about Dungeons & Dragons, and who've never heard of the game before, or maybe have heard of it and don't know much about it, who are going to go in and watch it because it's a fantasy movie. Because they liked Game of Thrones, they liked Lord of the Rings, they liked all of this other kind of stuff. And I hope that the movie matches the quality of other fantasy genres that have come out recently to give those people a warm introduction into the D&D community. The other group are going to be the people that have been incorporated into D&D, like Jason and I. And we're going to see the little fun hidden treasures in the movie, and I look forward to seeing what the creative team is able to throw in as like little Easter eggs for members of the community.
So how long have you been playing D&D?
About 13 years, Jason.
Okay, so yeah, you're definitely in that group of like people who have been doing this for a while.
Yep. I started playing around D&D 4th edition. When I went down to my local game store, they told me to go buy Pathfinder books. And I remember in the whispers of this D&D 5th edition, and I've been hooked on 5th edition since then.
Gotcha. So I've always once played D&D. Back then it was always just been viewed as too nerdy for nerds, you know? And I think things like Critical Role has helped it gain more popularity over the years. And I started playing it a couple years ago with some interns at this internship I had. So I'm not too indoctrinated into D&D. I know mostly like how to play my own specific characters because apparently AW likes to put me through the work.
You are a fun character to play around, and you're doing a very good job with it, by the way. I had a thought. Mm-hmm. It has slipped my mind, unfortunately.
Okay. So yeah, I'm viewing this movie as like, as a cinephile, as a filmmaker, I'm more looking to this movie to make sure it's a good movie in general.
Yes.
If it's a franchise film, I can understand it's a franchise film. I want it to stand by itself. And if someone sees it, I want it to be like, it's a good movie by itself. That's how I view movies. I don't want there to be like, oh, you have to watch the second part. Oh, you have to do this, whatever. What I want this to be is be like a good movie by itself and also a good introduction into the world of D&D. That's what I want out of this.
I completely agree with that. It being a good piece of fiction, a good piece of fantasy on its own is going to be so important for getting a wider audience to appreciate and understand the world that they're about to enter into.
Yeah, so what else was I was thinking? Oh, I was thinking like Warcraft. Do you remember that movie Warcraft?
I never actually ended up seeing that one.
So here's the thing with Warcraft. It looked really good.
The trailers did look incredible for that movie.
Yeah, it's just like there was a character in there who's supposed to be like this wizard, but like the guy who played him didn't do a very good job of portraying him. He just felt like he was there doing the work, but he didn't do a very good job. And I'm sorry to say it, but like it was okay. And yeah, I just hope that's not what's going to happen with this movie.
Yeah. Well, I've seen both trailers multiple times at this point, and the trailers for the D&D movie look very good. I'm walking into this with high hopes. The cast look really good. I know some people on the CGI and production team, and they do incredible work. From what I've seen, I think this is going to be a very good movie. Only time will tell, obviously, as we are not watching it yet.
Yeah. So you'll hear back from us in just a second. Alright, so it's Jason here back. We just saw the Dungeons and Dragons movie right here. AW, what'd you think?
I really loved it. I thought it was absolutely amazing. They did exactly what I wanted it to be, which was a fantasy movie that appeals to a really broad audience. You didn't need to know anything about D&D to get into it, to experience it, to enjoy it. Yeah, in my opinion, there might have been some pacing stuff. It did introduce some characters a little quickly, went through a few plot points a little quickly. But overall, you get to know the main cast, you get to know the villains, the story's well told. I thought it was a really, really incredible experience.
Yeah, so I really liked it as well. It felt very much like a campaign as well, where like, oh, you have to do this to get that, but to get that, you have to go for this and that. There was a lot of that happening throughout the story, and I can see like how if you played this out, it would just be like a months-long campaign just to do. There's a lot of creativity that happened throughout the movie, and the fight choreography by itself was really amazing.
Completely agreed. It was more realistic than a lot of what you'll see in other stuff. It felt actually like a real combat.
Yeah, and they're like there's also like a difference in fighting between like the paladin and the barbarian. They have completely different styles to the way they did their fighting.
Yeah, it felt like each of these were actual characters that were played and enjoyed during production of the film itself. Like these actors actually were these characters and really got to know them.
Yeah, so I want to ask you, who is your favorite character?
That's a really hard question. I think, it's got to go to the Chris Pine, the main character role. I liked that his character didn't have any powers, but used his brain to be able to think about and approach these different situations. Really gave a new twist to a kind of main character that isn't as prominent as a combatant or as prominent as a charismatic person.
Right. I really like that too as well. I would say my favorite character is the Druid character. Both the actor and the character I really liked because they just knew what they were doing, essentially.
Absolutely.
Turning into a worm, turning into like an owlbear.
Absolutely. It was very well executed. All of the characters, in complete honesty, were very well executed in terms of realism, but also in terms of fantasy. They didn't do anything that was way beyond anything else that they should be able to do. No one stood out above the rest of them. They all had their moments where they needed to be their own roles. It didn't feel like anyone was the jack of all trades.
Yeah.
It felt like every character needed to be there, and they wouldn't have been able to succeed without the contributions of each individual person. Very much like a real game of D&D.
Yeah, that's what I really liked about it as well. I would have to say, like, having Hugh Grant as like the villain here, I just love that they had him there because like I didn't know his role until like I saw him in the movie. I'm like, you know what, he's gonna be a villain. Like he's too British to not be the villain.
Yeah. A lot of twists, but also you could see some of the plot developing as it comes around, which in this case didn't end up being a bad thing. I think the plot kind of being foreshadowed worked really well, and even though I kind of knew what was going to happen at the end, that was okay because they approached it in a really intelligent way.
Yeah. So my last question is, actually 2 final questions. What was your favorite scene?
Oh, my favorite scene. I can't answer that really. I mean, a lot of them were very well done. If I had to pick one right off the top of my head, though, it would be Simon attuning to the helmet. Because that's something a lot of people can relate to as it being yourself that's blocking you from reaching these goals rather than someone else or something else in your life. And you could tell that this kid was going to be really powerful, and he had it in him to do that. He needed that little bit of spark.
Yeah, definitely.
Also, it was animated. All of those scenes when he's in the helmet world and trying to get tuned, the animations, the CGI were absolutely incredible.
I would have to say my favorite scene is when they're fighting the chunky dragon.
Tubby Dragon is such a good addition to this world.
Yeah, just like, cause like the way he like the dragon chased after them, he wasn't just flying. He was like literally
crawling and rolling and tumbling around. And a very realistic way of approaching what would happen in that scenario.
Final question: did you see any inspiration to you're getting?
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. For those who don't know, I am the DM for the game that I play with Jason. I will take quite a bit of inspiration from this to have fun with my players throughout the next few months.
I have a lot of inspiration to annoy him as well. All right, this has been the Hitlist Podcast. This is our review of Dungeons and Dragons. So, should people watch it?
Yes,
I agree too. Go watch it in theaters. By the time we release this episode. Okay.
March 31st, I believe.
Yep, March 31st, 2023. All right, cool. See you guys later. Until next time, cross off a new film from your list. Thank you for listening to the Hit List Podcast. If you like this episode, please consider giving us 5 stars and leaving a review. You can also follow us on Instagram at _hitlist_podcast and TikTok at @TheHitListPodcast.